In the heart of a mist-shrouded beach, where the waves whispered secrets of times long past, there lay a bay known for its eerie tales. Its rolling dunes seemed to hide shadows that moved like specters under the night sky, casting long shadows that stretched out like ghostly fingers. Enter our protagonist, let's call him Mark, a skeptic by nature but drawn to the bay's sinister allure by a morbid curiosity that gnawed at his sanity. Determined to debunk the legends of disappearances and apparitions that plagued the local folklore, Mark embarked on a journey into the heart of darkness, armed with nothing but his courage and a flashlight to pierce the mist. As Mark crossed the invisible threshold between the safety of the town and the mystery of the bay, a chill wind whispered through the dunes, carrying with it the distant echo of sinister laughter and the muffled cries of lost souls. Undeterred, Mark pressed on, his footsteps echoing like a drumbeat in the oppressive silence. It wasn't long before Mark encountered the first sign of the bay's malevolent presence, a decrepit wooden shack that seemed to watch him with unseen, malevolent eyes. Ignoring the creeping sense of unease that prickled at his skin, Mark pressed on, determined to uncover the truth behind the legends. But as he delved deeper into the bay's meandering paths, Mark found himself ensnared in a labyrinth of dunes and hidden coves, each more sinister than the last. Shadows danced upon the sands, morphing into grotesque shapes that seemed to taunt him with their otherworldly presence. In a desperate bid to escape the bay's clutches, Mark stumbled upon a hidden staircase that descended into darkness. With trembling hands, he lit his flashlight and descended into the abyss, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. But as Mark reached the bottom of the staircase, he was greeted by a sight that froze the blood in his veins. A vast cavern bathed in an eerie blue light, where the spirits of long-lost sailors danced in macabre celebration. Trapped in the grip of the supernatural, Mark watched in horror as the ghosts closed in around him, their hollow eyes gleaming with hunger as they reached out with spectral hands to claim him as one of their own. With a scream that echoed through the waves, Mark was consumed by the darkness, his fate sealed within the bay's cursed embrace. And so, dear listeners, heed this cautionary tale of hubris and folly, for in the realm of the supernatural, there are forces beyond our comprehension, and the line between skepticism and belief is thinner than we dare to imagine. Beware the haunted beaches that lie hidden in the shadows, for once you enter, escape may be impossible, and your soul may be lost to the darkness forevermore. In the quiet coastal town of Brincliff, tales of the ghost ship of Widow's Bay had been whispered for generations. Local lore told of a ship that vanished one stormy night, only to reappear every decade, drifting silently along the shore, shrouded in a thick, unnatural fog. Few believed the old stories, dismissing them as mere superstition, but for those who had seen it, the haunting vision was all too real. It was a moonless night when Clara, a young marine biologist, arrived in Brincliff. She was there to study the bay's unique ecosystem, but the locals' eerie tales intrigued her. Skeptical by nature, Clara decided to investigate the legend of the ghost ship. With her equipment packed, Clara set off for Widow's Bay. The beach was deserted, the only sound the gentle lapping of waves against the shore. She set up her camp near the old lighthouse, its once bright beam now dark and forgotten. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine as she looked out over the water, an unexplainable sense of unease settling over her. As midnight approached, the air grew colder. A dense fog began to roll in, swallowing the beach and casting an eerie glow over the water. Clara watched in fascination as the mist thickened, her scientific curiosity overriding her growing fear. Then she saw it. A dark silhouette emerged from the fog, the outline of a ship slowly taking form. It drifted closer, its tattered sails flapping in the breeze, and a chill ran through Clara as she realized this was no ordinary vessel. The ship seemed ancient, its wood weathered and covered in seaweed, as if it had been lost to the sea for centuries. Clara grabbed her camera, determined to document the phenomenon. As she focused her lens on the ship, she noticed figures moving on the deck, ghostly apparitions, their forms barely visible through the mist. Her heart pounded as she watched them, their movements slow and deliberate, as if they were searching for something or someone. Suddenly, a low, mournful wail echoed across the bay, and the ghostly figures turned to face Clara. She froze, unable to tear her eyes away from the haunting sight. The apparitions began to move toward the edge of the ship, their hollow eyes fixed on her. Panic surged through Clara. She stumbled backward, dropping her camera and tripping over a rock. As she scrambled to her feet, she saw the ghostly figures step off the ship and begin to glide across the water, heading straight for her. She turned and ran, her flashlight beam bouncing wildly in the fog as she made her way back to the lighthouse. She reached the old building and threw open the door, slamming it shut behind her. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she pressed her back against the cold, damp wall, listening for any sign of the apparitions. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of her own breathing. Minutes passed, then hours. Clara sat huddled in the corner of the lighthouse, too terrified to move. The first light of dawn began to filter through the dirty windows, and she dared to peek outside. The fog was lifting, and the beach was empty once more. The ghost ship had vanished, leaving no trace of its eerie visit. Shaken but determined, Clara retrieved her camera from the beach. She examined the footage, hoping to find evidence of what she had seen. But to her dismay, the images were blurry and indistinct, the ghostly figures nothing more than smudges of light in the fog. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, Clara knew what she had witnessed. The ghost ship of Widow's Bay was real, and its spectral crew still haunted the waters, searching for something lost to the depths of the sea. She decided to stay in Brinecliff, dedicating her research to uncovering the truth behind the legend. As the years passed, Clara became a part of the town's lore, her own story entwined with the tales of the ghost ship. Some called her obsessed, others claimed she had gone mad, but Clara knew better. She had seen the ghost ship with her own eyes, felt the chill of its presence, and heard the mournful wail of its lost crew. Every decade, as the fog rolled in and the tide rose, Clara stood vigil on the shore, waiting for the ship to reappear. And each time, it did, drifting silently through the mist, a reminder of the mysteries that lay hidden in the depths of the sea. One particularly foggy night, 10 years after her first encounter, Clara stood at Widow's Bay once more. The familiar chill ran down her spine as she watched the fog thicken, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. She knew the ghost ship would come, and this time, she was determined to uncover its secrets. As the silhouette of the ship emerged from the fog, Clara took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to face the ghostly apparitions once more. The ship drifted closer, its spectral crew moving silently on the deck. Clara felt their hollow eyes upon her, but this time, she did not run. The apparitions glided across the water, their ghostly forms eerily beautiful in the moonlight. Clara stood her ground, her eyes locked with those of the nearest apparition. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, the world reduced to the ghostly figures and the sound of the waves. Then, without warning, the lead apparition reached out, its cold, spectral hand passing through Clara's chest. She gasped, feeling a chill spread through her body. But instead of fear, she felt a strange sense of peace. The apparition's eyes, once hollow and empty, now seemed to shine with understanding. Clara closed her eyes, letting the chill envelop her. She felt herself being lifted, as if carried by the waves, and when she opened her eyes again, she was on the deck of the ghost ship. The apparitions surrounded her, their faces no longer menacing, but filled with sorrow. The ship began to move, gliding through the fog, and Clara knew she had become part of its legend. The ghost ship of Widow's Bay had claimed another soul, adding her story to its haunting legacy. And so, dear listeners, beware the foggy shores of Widow's Bay, for once you see the ghost ship, there is no turning back. In the sleepy coastal town of Havenport, where the lighthouse's beam swept across the tranquil waters every night, a hidden cove lay nestled between jagged cliffs. This cove, known as Siren's Hollow, was a place of unsettling beauty and eerie legends. Locals spoke in hushed tones about the siren's call, a haunting melody that lured sailors to their doom, never to be seen again. Our protagonist, Amelia, was a marine archaeologist with a penchant for unraveling mysteries. She arrived in Havenport to study the shipwrecks rumored to litter the ocean floor near Siren's Hollow. Skeptical of the supernatural, Amelia was drawn to the cove by curiosity and a desire to debunk the tales of the siren's call. Armed with her diving gear and a sense of determination, Amelia set out for Siren's Hollow one overcast morning. The path to the cove was treacherous, winding through dense woods and over slippery rocks. As she neared the beach, a strange feeling of unease settled over her, but she shook it off, attributing it to the foreboding atmosphere. The cove was breathtaking, with its crystal-clear waters and pristine sands. But Amelia had no time to admire the scenery. She was eager to begin her exploration. She donned her wetsuit, checked her equipment, and waded into the water. The chill of the ocean was bracing, but Amelia welcomed it, finding comfort in the familiar routine. As she descended into the depths, the world above faded away, replaced by the serene beauty of the underwater realm. Fish darted through the water, and vibrant coral formations adorned the ocean floor. Amelia marveled at the untouched beauty, but she was on a mission. She swam deeper, her flashlight cutting through the dim blue haze. It wasn't long before she found the first wreck. The skeletal remains of a ship lay half buried in the sand, encrusted with barnacles and seaweed. Amelia's heart raced with excitement as she began to document the find, her camera capturing every detail. But as she worked, she became aware of a faint, almost imperceptible sound, a melody that seemed to seep into her consciousness. At first, she thought it was the current playing tricks on her ears. But the melody grew louder, more insistent, wrapping around her mind like a fog. It was beautiful, haunting, and utterly mesmerizing. Amelia shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts, but the song persisted, tugging at the edges of her sanity. She looked around, searching for the source of the melody, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. The wreck remained silent and still, a ghostly testament to the power of the sea. Amelia tried to focus on her work, but the siren's call was relentless, weaving its way into her thoughts. She felt an overwhelming urge to follow the melody, to uncover its source. Against her better judgment, she began to swim deeper, the song guiding her through the darkening waters. The world around her seemed to blur, and she lost track of time and direction, her only anchor the haunting melody that filled her mind. As she ventured further, the water grew colder, and the light from the surface faded. Amelia's flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the ocean floor. She should have turned back, but the siren's call was irresistible, drawing her ever closer. Finally, she saw it, a dark shape looming ahead, half hidden in the murky depths. It was another wreck, larger and more imposing than the first. The melody grew louder, more urgent, as if urging her to approach. Amelia hesitated, a sense of dread creeping over her, but curiosity and the song's pull were too strong to resist. She swam closer, her heart pounding in her chest. The wreck was in surprisingly good condition, as if preserved by some unnatural force. As she circled the ship, she noticed strange markings on the hull, symbols that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly light. Amelia's breath caught in her throat as she realized she had stumbled upon something far more ancient and sinister than she had imagined. Suddenly, a movement caught her eye. A figure emerged from the shadows, gliding through the water with an eerie grace. It was a woman, her skin pale and her eyes dark as the depths. Her long hair flowed around her like a veil, and her lips moved in sync with the haunting melody. Amelia felt a surge of fear and fascination. The siren was real, and she was here, singing the song that had led so many to their doom. The siren's eyes locked onto Amelia's, and a cold smile played across her lips. The melody grew louder, drowning out Amelia's thoughts, and she felt herself being drawn towards the siren, unable to resist. The siren reached out, her fingers cold as ice, and touched Amelia's cheek. In that moment, a flood of images and emotions overwhelmed her. Sailors lost at sea, their final moments filled with terror and longing. Amelia felt their despair, their hopelessness, and knew that she was destined to join them. But then, a flash of determination cut through the fog of the siren's call. Amelia fought against the pull, her mind clearing enough to remember her training. She reached for her diving knife, gripping it tightly as she tried to break free from the siren's hold. The siren's eyes widened in surprise and her grip tightened. Amelia felt her strength ebbing away, but she refused to give in. With a desperate effort, she slashed at the siren's hand, breaking the contact. The siren hissed in pain, the melody faltering for a moment. Seizing the opportunity, Amelia kicked away, swimming towards the surface with all her remaining strength. The song still echoed in her mind, but its hold was weakening. She could see the faint light of the surface above, a beacon of hope in the darkness. Her lungs burned as she broke through the water's surface, gasping for air. The cold wind stung her skin, but she welcomed it, feeling the siren's call fading into the background. She swam towards the shore, her limbs heavy with exhaustion. Collapsing on the beach, Amelia lay there, breathing heavily and staring up at the cloudy sky. She had escaped the siren's grasp, but the memory of that haunting melody would stay with her forever. She knew the danger of Siren's Hollow was real, and that the legends held more truth than she had ever imagined. In the days that followed, Amelia shared her story with the townspeople of Havenport. Some listened with skepticism, others with fear, but all acknowledged the power of the legend. The cove was declared off-limits, and a new warning was added to the tales of Siren's Hollow. Amelia continued her work, but the experience had changed her. She no longer sought to debunk legends, but to understand and respect the mysteries of the sea. And on stormy nights, when the wind howled and the waves crashed against the cliffs, she could still hear the faint echo of the siren's song, a reminder of the dangers that lurked beneath the surface. So, dear reader, if you ever find yourself in Havenport, beware the call of Siren's Hollow. For once you hear its haunting melody, escape may be impossible and your soul may be lost to the depths forevermore.